What's good, people? This is Dr. Angela, everyone's favorite OBGYN, and I would like to officially welcome you to the Ask Dr. Angela podcast. Woo! It's crazy. I woke up this morning and yet another black man had been shot, running away. It just seems we don't need a reason to shoot black people in the United States. For those of you that are offended by that, I'm not sorry. This is just kind of what it is in America. It's what it has been in America. I never thought that I would be witness to modern day lynchings. You know, those things that my great-grandparents and my grandparents used to talk about, you know, the racism and discrimination that my parents grew up with. I never thought that I would see present day, and I bear witness. So, really interesting thing. So it is summer, and you see I got this scarf around my neck. I'm actually going to take this off, but there's a funny story behind the scarf. It's a great scarf. I got this scarf yesterday. I had office hours yesterday, and my medical assistant, who was amazing, her name is Heidi, I wanted to get her a cup of coffee for, to get through our morning. And I went to Rook Coffee. Rook is owned by my friend, Holly. And so, with all of this social distancing still being in place in Jersey, I had to order it on the app, and then, you have to go into the store and pick it up, but you have to have a mask. Well, lo and behold, I did not have a mask. So I was waiting for my coffee and speaking with a young lady that I just randomly met who was sitting in her car smoking a cigarette, also waiting for her coffee. And she and I struck up a conversation, and she was so super nice. And, I said to her, "How long have you been waiting?" It was my first time actually ordering coffee using Rook's app. And when I ordered it, it said it's going to be like 15 minutes. And I thought, oh, hell, I don't have 15 minutes. I can maybe do 5. So I didn't have a face covering. So I pulled my T-shirt up over my nose and went to the doorway and asked them. And they were like, oh, yeah, we can probably get it to you in like 5 minutes. And so I said, cool, thank you. Well, there was this gentleman who had just gotten his coffee, and he was in like this fantastic BMW. And he was a really good-looking guy, and he looks at me and he says, "Excuse me, miss, do you need a face covering? You can use my scarf." And I thought, are you serious? And so he lent me the scarf that I just showed you, this nice scarf. He lent it to me so that I could go in and grab my coffee. And then afterwards, he was like, "You can just keep it." And the young lady that I had been talking with prior to going and getting my coffee, she was like, "Oh my gosh, you are going to have a great day." Because this guy really was a looker, really, a good looking guy. And I tell people all the time, I might be gay, but I'm not blind. And he was pretty hot. But anyway, let's jump right into today's topic. Today's topic actually comes to me via email. I'm going to call you Double A, like the batteries. But anyway, Double A sent me this email via my Ask Dr. Angela email account. And she said, "Hi, Dr. Angela. I just came across one of your YouTube videos." Shout out to my YouTube videos. Anyway, I just came across one of your YouTube videos answering a question about heavy bleeding and being pregnant. Well, I have a concern myself. I miscarried in May. It was my first pregnancy. This has been a very traumatic experience. I never knew I would bleed for 2 months on and off, light and very heavy. It concerns me because I've never heard a miscarriage lasting for so long. What could it be? I have an upcoming appointment with my OBGYN to see why I've been bleeding so much. What do you think? And then she goes on to say that she and her partner would like to try again for another baby, but it's hard when she's always bleeding. This is really a great question. First of all, I'm so sorry for your loss, specifically in this time of the pandemic where I'm sure you probably were not allowed to have your partner in the office with you, to be evaluated for this. And when you're going through this, I have to tell you, I grieve with my patients for having to go through pregnancies and losses. alone. And when I say alone, I mean just not being able to have a support person with you at such difficult and sensitive visits. So my first thought with what you said is that I wonder if you have completely passed the pregnancy. One of the main reasons that women will continue to have heavy bleeding after a miscarriage is that you haven't completely passed all of, I'm going to say, products or, the pregnancy. That's actually probably one of the most common reasons that women will continue to have heavy, intermittent, or irregular bleeding. So one of the first things that I would do, and you did say that you were going to go and see your OBGYN, is I would definitely go in to see your OBGYN. You need an exam so that they can evaluate your cervix and see if there's anything in the cervix that can be removed. The other thing is you need an ultrasound to look at the lining of the uterus to ensure that everything has been removed. An ultrasound and an exam will answer both of those questions. This might be a little bit overkill on my part, but I'm not even going to say typically, I always do it. Whenever I have women that have gone through any kind of miscarriage, whether it's managed medically, which means that you've been able to spontaneously pass it on your own or via the help of some medications, or even if it's surgical where we actually take you to the OR to remove, the remnants of the pregnancy. I always follow the quantitative HCG, that's the pregnancy hormone level, to normal value. The reason that that's important for me is that it lets me know that there are no remaining contents from the pregnancy. So, my general rule of thumb where any kind of bleeding is concerned is any bleeding that's more than a pad an hour is never normal and immediate grounds to call and notify your OBGYN. Status post a loss or miscarriage, it's not uncommon to have some irregular bleeding or spotting, but it should not be as heavy as what I perceive you are describing to me. And I always inform women that, remember, even if it was a loss early on, it was still a pregnancy. And, your body still is going to need an opportunity to, let the hormone values kind of reequilibrate and go back to normal. I'm hoping that has answered some of your question, or really all of your question. I'm hoping that you've gotten in to see your OBGYN by the time that you've listened to this podcast. And hopefully, I'm hopeful that you all will be able to try again, have a successful pregnancy. I know it's very nerve-wracking when you have a loss and you're afraid of trying again. There is no rule of thumb with regards to having to wait, 6 months, 7 months. As soon as you resume normal cycles, you can start trying again. Most of the literature actually does support that. I would just continue to take your prenatal vitamin, and good luck. Thank you so much for submitting your question, specifically one that's so sensitive. So again, I'm hopeful that you will be able to move beyond this, and I wish you well. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode. For those of you that are new to my podcast, I'm Dr. Angela, everyone's favorite OBGYN. I can be found at www.askdrangela.com. That's AskDrangela.com. Follow me on my social media channels, which include Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I am going to leave you today with a quote from one of my favorite books, The Invisible Man. It's by Ralph Ellison. That quote says this: "Power doesn't have to show off. Power is confident, self-assuring, self-starting and self-stopping, self-warming and self-justifying. When you have it, you know it." Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Until next time, remember to choose happiness. I can't wait to reconnect on episode 325 of the Ask Dr. Angela podcast.